All right, check the mic. We're going live. That's right. It's the first live reaction of the season. Just hours before the Hall of Fame game here, Sam. We've got news that Terry McLaurin has requested a trade. And let me just start with this, Sam, because we had a little text exchange. I have an idea where you're going to go with this. You and I are different. You are different. There's two types of people in the world here, Sam. Me being one and you being the other. One person, as soon as they hear the news, Terry McLaurin, who has requested a trade from the Washington Commanders, my mind immediately goes to, okay, who are the teams? Who's calling? Steelers, Super Bowl champs if they make this move. Patriots need a receiver for Drake May. Chargers could really use someone. And you're over there like, doesn't matter. Discuss.
Yeah, I mean, it's nothing dressed up as news. Like, the bottom line here is that the Washington Commanders and Terry McLaurin are quite far apart on a deal, and it's annoying everybody. But that's the same as it was an hour ago before we knew that all it is a declaration that things are still going nowhere. There's still almost no chance, I would imagine, that Washington actually trades Terry McLaurin. I sent you Adam Schefter's tweet that said, look, in recent times, at least 3 wide receivers have requested a trade. None of them got dealt. You know, it was Deebo Samuel who didn't get dealt until, a year, 2 years afterwards. Brandon Ayuk, both with the 49ers, by the way, both with, Adam Peters' former team, which is probably some signal there. And then T. Higgins, who got his long-term deal, is still with the team. So did all 3 of those guys get a long-term deal after they requested a trade? And ultimately, none of them were dealt the year that they requested a trade. So this whole, oh, he's out of there. Like, where's he going to go? That's not happening.
All right, that's the end of the video. It's not happening. I'm
Thanks
over. I had a list of teams. I had reasons. I was gonna drop a Steelers sneaky Super Bowl.
Well, okay,
take.
Look,
I was gonna drop some takes on here, and you're like, no, it's just dropping cold water, ice water on it.
Let's do this. Let's spend the first couple of minutes indulging your fantasies of all the places that he's not going to go and why it would be great if he ended up there. And then we can spend the last couple of minutes talking about the really important part of this, which is how have they got to this situation where, like, one of their best players for the last several years quite reasonably wants a better payday now that things are going well there. And they're so far apart on this deal that, no movement has happened in a month that he now wants out of the building. Let's do that. Okay. In your fantasy world, where is Terry McLaurin going?
Let's start with who Terry McLaurin is. And the part of the holdup here, you said, how did we get here? Because he's 30. The man's ancient, Sam. And the Commanders don't want to pay him, a multi-year deal at $30+ million per year. I think we just did the NFC and AFC East previews today, and we mentioned, look, the dude's been QB proof. He finally has his best quarterback. I think he's always been one of the better receivers in the league. I don't think he's in the top 5, but you'd argue about him in the top 10 to 15 or whatever range you want to put him in. The guy's really, really good. And now, where would he make a difference? First of all, in Washington, right? Like, if they got rid of Terry McLaurin, we're looking at maybe bottom 3, bottom 5 wide receiver core in the NFL. That's the impact that one player has. So that's the starting point of this discussion. When you're ranking receiving cores, your groups of pass catchers, that one guy makes a big difference. Where would he make a big difference? Theoretically, who should be calling? We'll say, who's at least saying, is it a 3rd rounder? Is it a 2nd? Like, what are you asking? Is it a 1st? Like, what are you asking for? Who's at least calling?
Uh-oh.
Pittsburgh Steelers. What?
Your face just froze in a fantastic fantastic look.
Oh, wonderful. We're back to this. We got to get back to the studio.
Yeah. You just asked were you asking me who
no,
should be calling?
I was asking the question. I was going to answer it too.
Okay. Well, go.
Pittsburgh Steelers should absolutely call. They could use another guy next to DK Metcalf, class of 2019.
But they can't, because it's not just who should trade for him. It's who's going to trade for him and give him the contract that Washington won't give him. I mean, Pittsburgh can't give him that deal after giving DK Metcalf their deal.
I think they can. I really think they can. I mean, almost every team I'm going to mention has either a first contract quarterback or they have Aaron Rodgers on this veteran, I'm about to retire discount and will be on a first contract quarterback. So they have the cap flexibility to do this. Pittsburgh has this unique opportunity with extra draft picks next year to actually help for this year. Let's get the best out of Aaron Rodgers for 1 year. And let's also have this incredible foundation for our next quarterback that we draft next year with Terry McLaurin and DK Metcalf. In this, we already talked about the Steelers maybe having the best defense in the NFL. I think that would be an amazing landing spot for Terry McLaurin here.
Then, I mean, but if they were going to go that route, why wouldn't they have just kept George Pickens and had
because of
DK Metcalf and George Pickens?
Because of everything else. Pickens, everything off field, everything that's run it. He's run his core. He's George Pickens. That ran its course in Pittsburgh like every other receiver for the first 4 years. Yes, absolutely.
How?
They didn't want to deal with it. They did not want to deal with him. Terry McLaurin is the opposite. Upstanding citizen, no off-field issues, no on-field issues, not throwing blows on the field or anything like. He's not doing the same stuff that George Pickens was doing. That's why. The Steelers didn't trade George Pickens because they're like, we love Roman Wilson. We love Calvin Austin. We're good, thanks. They didn't trade him because of that. They got out before his deal expired at the right time. So Pittsburgh's a team. New England Patriots have to be in the mix just because they went the Stephon Diggs route, but it's not like they can't use more for Drake May. The Chargers are the only one that I'll mention that doesn't have the first contract quarterback, but they don't have a massive investment financially in the receiving core. And even though they had Trey Harris, drafted him in the second round, they've thrown a lot at the receiving core, but Terry McLaurin, man, bumps everybody down a notch, as they say in the chat. That's right. McLaurin the 1 and McConkey the 2, Trey Harris the deep threat. Of course that works. Who else did I? And the Carolina Panthers are another interesting one. Tedoroa McMillan and Terry McLaurin as your 1-2 punch and bump everybody else down. Leggett and Thielen, who's getting older. So I think all those teams should at least be inquiring of Terry McLaurin.
Yeah, I mean, the Patriots, I think, are the obvious one. A couple of other teams I would throw in there. The Raiders have got plenty of money to spend and don't have a number 1 wide receiver, really. Like, they've got some good receivers, but they don't have a Terry McLaurin. I think he would make a massive impact on that team. The Green Bay Packers have the kind of money to make that happen if they wanted to, and they would be interesting because they could maybe send
something back.
Yeah, send a receiver back because they'd suddenly need to get rid of a receiver if they brought in Terry McLaurin. All this collection of guys they have, couldn't fit on the roster. So they'd be an intriguing team that would definitely answer their number 1 wide receiver question, and they'd be able to offload one of the ones that hasn't necessarily been consistent. So they would be an intriguing team to see what kind of deal they could put together. And then the Tennessee Titans have got the space to make that happen and the glaring need for a number 1 wide receiver. Terry McLaurin and Calvin Ridley as a duo wouldn't be the youngest duo in the NFL, but it would be pretty damn good for your number 1 quarterback.
Yeah, and I think he would be there for a couple of years for Cam Ward, and we've seen what the true wide receiver 1 can do for the young quarterbacks. I love that as a strategy to go for it. Would you do a Brandon Ayuk for Terry McLaurin straight up type of deal? If you're the Niners, either one?
No.
I wouldn't do it if I was the Commanders, but maybe with something else. But I wanted to discuss it from that end. If Washington did not have McLaurin and they did listen to these trade offers, they almost have to get something back, right? They have to get a Romeo Doubs from Green Bay or someone, right? They have to get an actual receiver, because then you're talking about, look, as great as Deebo Samuel has been as a player, he's never been this alpha number 1 wide receiver. He's been a good complementary receiver who can do a ton of other stuff in the short pass game and the screen game. And as a runner, you're not building your offense around Deebo, I don't think. Plus, he's coming with his own question marks. You have Noah Brown, you have Michael Gallup trying to rejuvenate his career. You have a speedster rookie in Jalen Lane. Like, this is not an on paper dependable wide receiver core. It looks reasonable with McLaurin as the anchor, but if you lose that, I think you're in trouble if you're the Commanders.
Yeah, well, this is one of those reasons why I think there's virtually no chance that this manifests before the season, because the draft is gone, free agency is gone. Like, the opportunities to potentially replace a Terry McLaurin are pretty much evaporated. So if you're Washington, you're trading him away for, even if it's a great, first round draft pick or whatever, you're not getting back anything like you're losing in giving up Terry McLaurin. for a team that is acting like they want to win right now. Laramie
Right.
Tunsil, Deebo Samuel, these are win now moves. These are not, let's plan for 2026. We've got a young quarterback. Let's, position ourselves for long-term success. This is a team that takes a huge step backwards if they lose Terry McLaurin. And that's why, number one, I don't think it'll happen. But number two, it means, like, if you're not going to take any of these trade deals, pay the man. Like, these are your two options.
I would pay him. How about you? Ultimately, is that your ultimate prediction here? You already threw enough cold water on this. So is that the ultimate prediction that they eventually get to a deal here?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I think all of those, certainly none of the receivers that requested trades got a trade, but I think all of them got a new deal. And ultimately, I think this is just, if there's any import to be taken whatsoever from this news, it is like, it's a statement from McLaurin that they are really pissed off by the way this is going. And I think certainly from the outside looking in, without knowing what those negotiations exactly look like, it's pretty easy to see his side of things more than it is Washington's. Like, this is a guy that's been phenomenal for them since he came into the NFL, that has been an incredibly, team first kind of guy, that's been quarterback proof. He finally has a quarterback. He played fantastically well. And other guys that I think are worse players than him are getting paid big money. So give him the money, right? Like, the only downside is his age. And okay, it is a downside and it is a concern. And maybe that changes how the contract needs to be structured. But he's only played 6 years. Like, it's not, sure, he's old, but he doesn't have a ton of miles on the clock in terms of, NFL playing time, or, just like a 12-year career under his belt. I feel like you've got to find a way of making this work.
He is a little older than everybody else in his draft class. A.J. Brown, before his void years kick in, is signed through 2029. He's 28 at the moment. So if McLaurin was to get a 3-year deal, you're talking about a similar length, except he'd be a couple years older. DK Metcalf is 2 years younger. Garrett Wilson just made a lot of money from the Jets. Of course, he's 5 years younger. He's only 25. So everyone that's making $32 million plus, on the much younger end than Terry McLaurin. But I could see, low 30s. I still feel like that's worth it with Washington. I don't know if I'd be that scared of him falling off a cliff. And I also feel like you could structure it, if a 3-year deal for Terry would coincide with when you probably have to start paying Jaden Daniels. And I feel like there's definitely a way that Washington can make that work, and also buy them some time to get a little bit younger at that position, because you're talking about McLaurin and Deebo Samuel. They're going to have to invest at receiver in these next couple of years so that Jaden has somebody to grow with in the coming seasons.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like those are the deals that are like, the DK Metcalf deal to me is the obvious starting point, right? If DK Metcalf gets $33 million a year, even with being a couple of years younger than McLaurin, I think you can easily argue from McLaurin's camp, he should be getting 33 million plus a year as well. But also, like, there's a way of, I think, fudging those numbers where he ends up looking like he's ahead, or both sides can win, right? So if Washington is looking at that and going, we don't want to give you $33 million a year like DK, or more than that. DK didn't get a ton of guaranteed money relative to other contracts. Like, he got the 33 million a year, but he only got 80 million total guarantees. Everybody else in and around that figure is at 90, $100 million. So there's a way, I think, of Washington saying, well, okay, let's keep that number below, DK. We want to save face there. We'll pay you 32 million a year or whatever, but we'll let you beat his guaranteed number, right? I think, that's the compromise that needs to happen, I think, is if these two sides are this far apart, let Washington save face with the APY number and say, we're not giving him 35 a year or whatever, and give McLaurin his guaranteed money, which honestly he's earned and he will earn over the next couple of years as well. Figure out a way of making it happen. It can't be that hard.
The only guys that are 30 plus years old at receiver that are in and around that $30 million mark are Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill's 31. The next 30 plus year olds, who just from an APY perspective are, in the top 15 to 20 receivers, Calvin Ridley at 23, Devontae Adams at 22. Man, the receiver market went quickly over these last couple of years. I know the cap jumped and other positions have as well, but the receiver market, remember just a few years ago, DeAndre Hopkins was making 27 and just a handful of guys were making in the low 20s. Now we're creeping up toward, we've got the 40 plus for Jamar Chase. So look, it's a tricky one. I could definitely see McLaurin for 3 years though being the right move for Washington, coinciding with when Jaden Daniels is going to be looking for getting his big payday as well.
Yeah, I mean his big problem, I think, is not so much the comps of money amongst the older receivers. It's that just I think we're in a run. It's always cyclical, right? The NFL and the sort of ebbs and flows. It feels like we're in a run where there haven't been a ton of receivers lately to have done well past the age of 30. But you go back further than that, and there was a whole rake of these guys that were playing phenomenal football, like deep into their 30s. It feels like we've had a lull in those guys, and that may be the biggest problem as much as anything, that suddenly Washington is looking at the receiver landscape and being like, dude, show me a receiver that's still cooking at the age of 32.
Yeah, and we're talking about Amari Cooper. DeAndre Hopkins is a lot older at this point, but just last year, those guys went from looking like reasonable options. Remember, DeAndre Hopkins was the dude 2 years ago who made Will Levis look like a star in his debut. And then last year, DeAndre Hopkins isn't even making that big of an impact with the Kansas City Chiefs. And Amari Cooper, it happens quick, man. It happens quick at the receiver position. So it's a tricky one because I don't think Washington wants to give up these next couple of years of having Terry McLaurin just in case he does fall off a cliff in, say, 3 years. That's what they're hedging against. I think ultimately, though, they need to just get it done.
It's an oversimplification, but what's the number you would go to if you were Washington?
I think you could give him 30 to 30, 31 and a half, and that'd be reasonable. Is he insulted by that? I don't really know where it is. Like I'd go as high as 32, 33. Because just from a team building standpoint, and I'm not dealing with the owner and what cash flow looks like,
right?
Whether I give him 31 or 35, I don't think that's affecting team building decisions in the coming years. If you're Washington, if you're a team that's paying a quarterback 50 to 60 million, then maybe you got to make some decisions off that. I would give it to him. Give him the number, give him whatever it is, go up to 35 and have a guy for Jaden Daniels over these next few years, and then start drafting receivers because you're going to need somebody in a couple years.
And this is where it gets tough when you start looking at comps and directly, Justin Jefferson's on $35 million a year. Like Terry McLaurin doesn't deserve Justin Jefferson levels of money. On the other hand, DK Metcalf's earning $33 million a year, and he does deserve DK Metcalf money. Like there's not a lot of gap between those two, and yet there's a seismic gap between the level of player there in Justin Jefferson and DK Metcalf. And that's why I'm saying I think the compromise has to be structure, right? Let Washington win and say we're not paying him, $33 million a year, but give him more guaranteed money.
AJ Brown looks like an absolute bargain at 32. Look, I think McLaurin's a step down from those guys, but I also think he has not been able to have the statistical seasons that those other guys have had because of the quarterback play.
Right.
He had wasn't even his best year, but the guy's been QB proof. It was his best year in touchdowns with 13 last year, but he's been doing it with Dwayne Haskins and Taylor Heineke and whoever else they've been trotting out there the last few years. He's better than his numbers would show, even though he's not probably in that top 5 wide receiver range.
Right.
All right, man. It's Hall of Fame night. I'm just trying to eat dinner, mow the lawn, get ready for the Hall of Fame game, and they're just breaking news and had to go live talking about Terry McLaurin. So the plan tonight, make sure you're subscribed and with us because we're going to go live. We're going to go live at halftime, see what happens. Just talk football. Football's coming back in just a little bit. So we'll see you in a little while, halftime of the Hall of Fame game.